So when COVID came, we all got comfortable and we started to order food, right? And while I was ordering, the plastic mountains were building and I felt very, very guilty. So I thought for this NOAH conference, I have to call some friends, the professionals, and ask them, how are we getting hold of all this plastic? Joerg from JustEatTakeaway, please come on stage. You are representing today the noble corporate. Maybe your colleagues are also coming. Sure. Okay, the interesting thing is I sent them a list of 300 startups which we found on our desktop research. And then after a few days, 2 leaders emerged from this and they have 2 different approaches. And I'm super pleased to have Notpla and vytal on stage. Sorry so much. Please, Joerg.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marco. And before we go into the packaging discussion, which is one significant pillar of our ESG strategy, I just want to give you a brief introduction into our ESG strategy over the next 5 minutes. Before I actually do that, I want to ask you a question. Does anyone of you know how much CO2 output there is if you fly for 1 hour in economy class per person? Anyone? It's about 90 to 100 kilogram of CO2. Anyone of you knows how much emission is caused by producing 1 kilogram of beef? Depending on how you cultivate it and depending on the survey or study you take, it's about 15 to 30 plus kilogram per kilogram beef you're cultivating. And actually, if you include other emission gases, it's actually reaching numbers more towards 100 kilogram of emission. So that's how big the scope is and the impact is of food consumption. And we have to be mindful of that, and we take that into consideration in our ESG strategy. I give you a couple of facts and figures about our business. We're now active in 20 countries. We have more than 650,000 restaurant partners, and we have about 100 million consumers, active consumers, who ordered last year in the value of more than 28 billion euros with our restaurant partners. Our own direct footprint is relatively modest. It's only about 11 kilotons of CO2 emissions. But if you include our partner emissions, the indirect ones, then you're ending up at around 800 kilotons of emissions. And most of it is actually deliveries. So that's really the biggest chunk of it. Now, after really examine the value chain, we came up with a strategy around 3 pillars. So the first pillar is about the planet. The planet contains basically our carbon footprint and the packaging, which we will talk about later in this panel here. And the carbon footprint, that's one of the most important targets we have. We came up with a target of being net zero CO2 emission by 2030. That actually compares in the market with a lot of our competitors who actually don't have a target at all. And those who have a target either are reducing it by, let's say, 40% by 2030, or are being net zero by 2040. So it's actually quite an ambitious target. The packaging I will get to again later. On the food side, the second pillar, it's about dietary choices and food waste. We're trying to make a positive impact by influencing the consumption of consumers, because to my example earlier, food consumption and whatever you eat has a massive impact on the planet and the climate. And the third one, we were always at the forefront of providing very fair and rewarding working conditions, especially to our drivers. In all of continental Europe, on almost all the cases, we are employing our drivers. We're providing, according to studies and surveys, the most fair working conditions. And we're trying to help our communities to make it a better place. So what did that strategy result into? I give you a few examples what we actually did in the last year. So by using mainly bikes and e-bikes, we were able to reduce emissions by 49 kilotons last year. We are changing all our contracts we have with facilities to green, which takes a while because some of the contracts are long-term contracts. And then packaging side, we introduced a seaweed line, which we have Pierre here. And by the way, congratulations to Pierre, because they just won a huge prize sponsored by Prince William, which we'll talk about later. And they won £1 million. So very big congratulations here. And we're also partnering with reusable packaging companies like Vytal, which we have Tim here, and rolling that out right now in 6 countries. On the food side, we had a big campaign with January, which was basically making people aware of the impact of their food consumption in 15 countries, reaching more than 20 million consumers. And people in society, I was already speaking about the way how we treat our drivers. And we have made donations here to date worth more than 30 million euros to communities and charities. So this is just a start. I know there's way more to do, but we're giving our best to really improve every day. And it has also been recognized by global institutions. So for example, we are part of the MSCI World Index, ESG Index. And when we started 4 years ago, we were rated BBB. Now we actually most recently get upgraded to AA, which means we're in the best tier of that index. With that, I wanted to hand over again to Marco. I'm very excited to be part of the packaging channel here with great companies like Pierre's and Tim's.
Thank you so much, Joerg.
Thanks.
Let's start with
Thank you,
Vytal. Tim, give us an overview.
I think
oh, sorry.
Pierre is actually
Yes.
starting, but
Hi everyone, so I'll be really quick. I'll steal the clicker, but Notpla, we are a sustainable packaging startup based in London, and we make packaging from seaweed and plants instead of using single-use plastics. We use all sorts of different types of seaweed to create a range of different packaging that are natural, biodegradable, and for some of them even edible. We started working with Jet for quite a few years now with this tackling the challenge of the invisible plastic that is found in most takeaway, home delivered boxes, which have a need for a thin liner that provides the resistance to grease and to moisture that otherwise cardboard would not be able to provide. So we've developed a coating that we apply onto cardboard to make the whole packaging completely natural, biodegradable, and recyclable. And we've been rolling this out now in 6 countries in Europe. We've also brought it at high-level events like the Euro final in Wembley, where the whole stadium was just using our plastic-free packaging, so it was really exciting. And excitingly, as mentioned earlier, on Friday we had David Beckham announce that we had won the Earthshot Prize, and that was a really amazing recognition for all the work. It's going to make our life much easier, and it was a very exciting moment to share with the team. So that's a little bit about Notpla.
thank you, Pierre. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here and tell you guys also a bit about Vytal, our reusable packaging as a service company. So with Vytal, we built the operating system for reusable packaging. And we do it by leveraging what we have known in the past as the library system, right? So we allow people to borrow containers for free in our case, and then give them a timeline of 14 days to return them. And within our service, we have 3 pillars. So on the one hand side, we have traceable containers. So we are currently the reusable provider that offers solution for pizza, sushi, burger, coffee, the regular bowls, and so on. So we have a whole range of standard containers which flow around the network of partners. We have more than 4,000 gastronomist partners at this point. And we also offer our gastronomist partners to introduce their own containers, their own reusable containers, which can then only be returned at their locations. And then even more important than basically the containers that are all traceable via a QR code are the apps and integrations. Because for our partners, like the gastronomists, but also delivery platforms and other service providers, we want to be a plug-and-play solution. So this is where the tech platform comes into play. And on the consumer side, we have the Vytal app, which is like the digital interface for people to use our service. And the vision is to really make the Vytal app into something like PayPal, where people have their Vytal ID linked to a couple of delivery services. Wherever they borrow or use reusable packaging, they can borrow that with their vytal ID. And we're very happy to be already integrated into the most relevant delivery services and software players within the industry. And then on the third pillar, basically, we have the analytics platform, which provides us with live data on our impact, and actually all our stakeholders within the network with live impact on how to balance the system and how much impact we actually generate. And with this digital library system, we have a return rate of 99.3% of containers that come back within this time frame, and this makes us even more efficient than the German beer bottle deposit system. And actually, why is reuse a topic? And I think that's very important to note that reuse is the most ecological and economically efficient way in the takeout and delivery food space in terms of packaging. And the regulators have understood that. And for example, in Germany, starting from January next year, the gastronomy is obligated to offer reusable as an alternative to single-use. And other countries, they implement levies on single-use containers and so on. So we want to get rid in this industry of the single-use packaging waste that we create today and move towards reuse as the new standard. And with Vytal, we're very happy to basically have more downloads, more registered app users on our platform than all other reusable players combined. And as you can see from the flags, Germany is really the market to be because here the reuse adoption is extremely high compared to other European markets that will follow with regulation upcoming. And with this, back to Marco.
Thank you so much. Very impressive. And congratulations for the prize.
Thank you very much.
Did you expect it?
Not at all.
So Zori, you're head of special projects at JET, and I believe the strategy Joerg was presenting with the 3 pillars needs to get implemented somehow. How are you prioritizing one of the 3 categories?
Yeah, we're simultaneously working on all of them. So we have diversity, we have employment, model for the couriers. Then our sales team are really focused on variety and choice. And we have ESG team that are working on reducing our delivery footprint. Our logistic is primary e-bikes and bikes. And then in terms of packaging, we see ourselves as enabler to our restaurant network. So we have more than 600,000 restaurants, and few of them only offering sustainable solution. So we have a team that do pre-selection screening and to be sure that we have sustainable solution, then we become advocates of these partners between Notpla and Vytal to our restaurants.
And I assume that those 2 startups here are the market leaders, of course, as we have already seen. What did it do to you, partnering with JET? Did it give you a value add? I think we were having some preparation calls. I said, well, that's like your dream customer to start with. Explain to us, maybe you start, Tim, how it came to that collaboration. Did you call them or did they call you?
Actually, it were our restaurant partners that called them and really tried to push the topic of reusables, because obviously the restaurants, the gastronomists, they're obligated to offer it, right? So they have an extreme high incentive to make the customer experience nice. And there, the delivery platform and JET in particular is the best interface in terms of digital point of sale to help consumers make sustainable choices and therefore switch from single-use to reuse. And we're super happy actually that starting today in Cologne, where we started with Vytal, we can actually now offer also the return via the JET platform. So you can actually return Vytal containers with your next food order.
Pierre, how did you find JET?
Yeah, so luckily in our case, they found us. They did a search on sustainable materials that could make the packaging of tomorrow. I think that we are super supportive for reusable products, because when we can reuse, we should. Unfortunately, we're also addicted to this convenience of consumption on the go. And in a way, when you look at nature, fruits are single-use and they're fine. So if we can offer something that really only uses materials that are abundant, we know that we're not creating a problem. And in the case of Just Eat, there was this willingness to kind of like help some of the emerging innovators find their way to scale up. So we started very early on, 3 years ago. We didn't have kind of like a finalized product, but thanks to the push and the orders and like the championing from within, we were able to open doors with the industry partners and make it a lot easier for us to do the first kind of like scale-ups. So this kind of leadership of making it possible for scaling up is very important for startups.
It sounds like a revolution which is happening, maybe not as fast. Pricing plays a big role. When I spoke to Nicholas of Delivery Hero, he told me, yeah, you know, all these new packages, they're just not price competitive. In the end, it's all about price. Is your solution more expensive than the traditional Chinese takeaway plastic box? How expensive
Yeah.
is it?
In our case, we've actually like worked on scaling up to reduce the cost. Today, we are on price, on par with all of the other so-called compostable materials like PLA or some of the other kind of like first-generation bioplastics. So it means that restaurants that are already engaging with sustainability don't have to pay a premium. The price of plastic is still very, very cheap. So we think that it's a virtually low cost. It doesn't take into account externalities. So we might never really drop the price down to the level that plastic is sold on the market. But we think that that's not really like what we are aiming, because taxes and regulations are going to actually make that not an option for the long term. So seaweed that grows extremely fast, up to a meter per day, has the potential of being the most like sustainable and like affordable solution for on-the-go consumption with disposables.
Wonderful. And for you, how is it for Vytal?
So already today, our pay-per-use price, which is the main revenue source of our business, is cheaper than what our gastronomist partners pay for their regular alternative, single-use alternative.
After the 20 years of use, maybe, or?
No, actually with the first use, because that's basically how we charge, right? They have a setup fee, and then they pay on a pay-per-use price. And yes, they would have to calculate the cleaning, because they do the cleaning on premise, but most gastronomists actually don't factor that in. And except for with the reusable pizza box, we are cheaper than single-use.
So it's not a question of price. Is it a question of R&D? Sorry, do you have in-house also additional sustainable packaging work going on? Or have you outsourced most of the work to startups like the ones we have here?
Yeah, we believe that you need to be focused on what you're doing best, and our core business is connect restaurant, consumer, so we create a network. Packaging suppliers are one of them, and it's about scale and cost, because still the solution is not that the cost that you have with the plastic. So plastic has two benefits, and it's easy to use, and it's the cost. And to reach that, you really need to have high scale. So all of us need to play a role there. So it's like investing in different solutions, so we're testing, learning, and see how it goes. Then platform as us can be enabler for scaling up, create awareness towards the restaurant and consumer education, and the public sector regulation definitely can play a big role there.
So for the future fundraise, I hope you met lots of investors here, but are you planning to raise more money and capture the whole opportunity? I asked you both, you have done more than 1 million meals, both of you, my understanding is, which is already a big number, I thought. But how do we get you to 100 million meals, and how much money do you need for that?
For us, excitingly, we've reached a very big milestone on scaling up, so we should be able to make 50 million boxes next year. So now we need commercial traction.
Yeah, we have saved so far 5 million single-use containers, and I think in terms of scaling, it really is a beauty of our business that we align economic and environmental incentives, and in the end, the dominant player in the B2C reusable world will come from Germany. And I think, yeah, we do have a location advantage because people are used to the deposit return system. So I'm very, very happy that we have partners like Jet that help us bringing our solution from Germany also to the other markets that will follow.
Wonderful. Joerg, I think I pretty much asked all the questions we wanted, but I love this because when we started with sustainability, one thing was clear. Without collaboration, this is never going to work. And when I invited you to speak at the conference and you suggested those companies, I think this is exactly the collaboration we were looking for. Amazing step towards sustainability. And I don't think it's easy to go from BBB to AA. So hopefully your Christmas bonus is linked to it. We heard earlier some people were saying it's not. So thank you so much for the amazing panel.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you.
Thank you much.